morning and welcome to Market Insights. I am Lovina Emah. It's a lovely day and we are broadcasting live from the city of Lagos on Sook News Television. So today we will focus on a topic that is reshaping the business world, and that's digital transformation. But what does this mean for Nigerian businesses? Now, in today's fast-paced world, technology-driven world, we see it every day. We're always on our smartphones, on our iPads, on our laptops. We are all driven by technology. And Nigerian businesses must adapt to stay competitive. Now, this digital transformation is no longer a luxury, but a necessity, and the numbers are compelling. For example, 50% of Nigerian businesses still rely on manual processes, which shouldn't be the case. And 70% of consumers prefer digital channels for their customer services to resolve any issues they have when having transactions online. This is all part of our digital revolution, and this digital transformation can increase productivity in businesses by 30%, which is quite significant. Now, this digital age is no longer a future trend. It's the present reality. From online marketplaces to AI-powered solutions, technology is revolutionizing how we do business. But many how we do business, you know how it is right now, not just in Nigeria, but all over the world. Now, the question remains, how can you, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, leverage this digital revolution to grow your business? So this morning, we will explore the key strategies that can help you navigate this digital landscape. So whether you're a tech-savvy entrepreneur or just starting out in the business sector, this episode will provide actionable insights. In addition, we have an expert that you'll hear from, and he has embraced digital transformation and reaps the rewards. And he will share his experiences, challenges. So we look forward for all of you watching the program this morning to follow in his footsteps. So whether you're a seasoned business owner or an aspiring entrepreneur, join us after the break as we unravel the secrets to digital success in Nigeria. Welcome back and thank you for watching the program. Now, our guest this morning is Wilson Samson. He is the Chief Growth Strategist at Litera Forge Ltd. He also has a background in psychology, and he is also a certified professional in Enterprise Management, CPEM, from the Institute of Enterprise Management and Analytics, and the International Award in Delivering Training, IADT, from HABC UK. Samson Wilson also helps entrepreneurs and professionals manage their workload efficiently with tailored support systems and solutions to streamline operations, boost productivity, and achieve optimal efficiency. So welcome to Market Insights, Samson Wilson.
Thank you, Lovina.
Great to have you on the program, looking great as usual.
Thank you, the pleasure is mine.
Okay, we're happy to have you here and to talk about digital transformation for Nigerian businesses. So let's get right into it. Now, what is digital transformation all about, and why is it important for Nigerian businesses?
Well, digital transformation has to do with a simplified way of doing business. I'll give this analogy. 10, 20 years back, when you want to run a survey, you have to print out papers and go from place to place. With digitalization now, all you just need to do is to create a Google form, and you can actually get the survey of people without actually traveling there. One, you save cost, you save time, and you also save life, because the risk of people commuting from different parts to get those information is totally eliminated. So within a short time frame, you are able to get the result that you need. So that's what digital transformation brings about to businesses. Another example could be during the pandemic, where there was a lockdown and there were no events out there, so you have to do things digitally. That was where the likes of Zoom came out, where you could have different online meetings. You could solve different problems without actually going to any location, just being able to hold strategic meetings virtually with people. Now you're able to save costs. The only thing there is just you need data and you need power. So those are the ways that we could exemplify what digital transformation means to business.
Well put, and you went straight to the point. That's very key. Okay, thank you for sharing insights into this. Now, looking at our 21st century right now, we've seen a lot of things evolving. We have seen we can use our smartphones to get things done faster and easier, like you mentioned. Now, how can businesses use these emerging technologies to adapt to the ever-evolving customer expectations and market dynamics?
Well, that's a very interesting question, and that's coming at such a time as this in Nigeria, where a lot of businesses are grappling with cost of production, the cost of fuel. So one of the things that they could do is approaching a lean management system where you say, okay, what are the things we need to cut off? What are the things that we need to digitalize? What are the things that we need to delegate? For example, you could, instead of thinking of expanding your business physically, why don't you think of investing in social media adverts, where you are able to screen who your target audience are, what their consumer, well, you'll be able to study the consumer behavior, you're able to study what their likes, their wants, their needs. You're able to know what their problems are, where they are located, and you're able to target them. Now, with that, with such kind of information, you now begin to look at, okay, what will be their future needs in case the person relocates from this area to another area? How can we ensure that there is constant communication, which most times the physical or the manual way of doing business may not even afford you of such kind of opportunity. Now, another thing that businesses should begin to look at is, what can we do differently? Now, in the case where you have 10 people and you want to go lean, you now discover that, okay, how can we have people work remotely? That would reduce the pressure on maybe on the power, the electricity consumption, and also it would also reduce the cost of production for you somehow. Then when you now begin to look at, okay, instead of the manual way of printing, can we go digital? Invest in email marketing, you invest in other tools to say, okay, we want to have meetings. Can we try Google Meet? Can we try Zoom? Can we try Team? And you begin to look at, okay, the most important thing in the end is you're trying to save time, you're trying to save cost, you're trying to also reduce your risk. Because at the end of the day, nobody is going to bear your risk for you. So you need to see how to mitigate your risk as an entrepreneur, as a business person.
Okay, well said. Thank you for that, Wilson Samson. Now, we're looking at this 21st century. Now, we've seen in different sectors of our economy. For example, in the finance industry, we have seen that with adapting to the technologies that we have right now, we've seen the rise of fintechs. We no longer have to be using our usual banks to get loans and other financial services that you need. In the manufacturing industry, we've also seen the rise of robotics, having to be able to put things together, package goods for consumers. And in agricultural sector, we have seen the Internet of Things, which has transformed the way, I would say, a faster way of doing things in the agricultural sector. Now, how can other sectors or how can other companies also participate or tap into making their businesses move faster and embrace these digital technologies to compete in our ever-changing world?
All right, that's a very good question. So let's look at the transportation industry, for example. Before now, you need to go down to the park or to the parking lot to pay. Now, technology has helped some transport system to introduce the pay online. You book your ticket online and you make your payments. You only come in at the time you're supposed to take off. Now, when businesses begin to look at that, maybe other sectors like the agricultural sector and every other sector, that instead of carrying physical cash, why don't you think of another way to say, okay, let's digitalize it. You don't need to come. You can make your payment online. You can make your bookings online. You can make payments online. Then we will deliver at your doorstep. Now, what that does, it saves the clients or the customers the pressure of needing to move from one location to another. Rather, you just make your payment and you know exactly where to pick up your goods and you know where to distribute. So it helps a free flow of distribution. Then it also increases the value chain. So everybody is feeling valued, everybody is making an input, everybody knows that, okay, this is what responsibility I need to put in and this is what I need to contribute in order for everybody to win. Becomes a win-win and not some win, some lose.
Okay, that was very smartly put there, actually, because we have definitely seen the benefits these days. When people travel by road, they don't need to go there with cash. They can just book online and pay online.
Absolutely.
Everything is done easily. Now, what are the biggest challenges faced by Nigerian businesses when adopting to these digital technologies?
Well, one of the major challenges is lack of training, because when something new comes in, naturally we want to oppose to change. And so we may have manpower, but how skilled are this the manpower in able to transform into the digital? Because remember, if you are trying to digitalize what you're doing, it's going to take a while for people to be able to adapt to it. For example, looking at the upgrade the banks are doing, as much as they have given a time frame, it will take a while before things can actually integrate properly. So lack of training, it's one major issue. Then the lack of skilled professionals in that field to be able to deploy the solutions that they're trying to integrate to becomes another issue. But that does not mean that it cannot be solved. But it only means that the professionals in the field need to scale up, because the way knowledge and information is spreading, in less than 12 hours, you have an information update. And so if you are not upgrading, you're actually going obsolete. So businesses need to look at, okay, while they're trying to employ digital solutions, they need to find out our professionals, our employees, are they up to par with what we want to introduce, so that at the end of the day, what's supposed to be a solution will not end up becoming a problem.
That's very key. So a lack of skills, lack of training, those are very key things. Now, looking at, let's start with Nigeria before we talk about other countries of the world now. Are we ready in this country for this digital transformation, looking at the business industry and our different sectors of our economy? Do you think we are ready?
Well, those who are ready, well, it comes in two ways. The people who are ready, and those who are not ready will have to do the catch-up. For example, in the health sector, you have the information management system, where previously you need to be carrying files up and down. Some hospitals have upgraded in such a way that the case file of their patients have been digitalized. So at a click, you just click a button and all the record of the patient comes in. So there is room for continuity. So yes, technology might be expensive, but it's not as expensive as ignorance. So I would say that the organizations who are ready, while those who aren't ready will have to do the catch-up somehow.
Okay. Well, before we get into catching up to that process now, I'm looking still on Nigeria now. How can Nigerian businesses create an environment that will be conducive to digital adoption?
One of the ways is they need to have embrace more stakeholder meetings, like a town hall meeting, where it's about collaboration this time around, not about competition, because everyone is currently hit by economic policies, and you have to find a way to adapt and adopt rather than trying to fight. So it's where everybody comes together to say, okay, the stakeholders and the key players will say, okay, what can we do to ensure that there is a smooth flow? So it's just like in the telecom industry, I had opportunity to work with one or two persons, and I asked a few questions, and there's something they call collocation, where different network providers can actually use one particular base station. So when we have such, where the hospital is established, and in that same hospital, you don't need to establish another laboratory. you can have a laboratory that can serve as many hospitals within that location. So I'm using that as an example. So when other businesses begin to look at, okay, how can we meet up? Some airlines are doing it where they collaborate together to say, okay, we can help you take cargo delivery from this point to this point. You deliver to this point. We deliver from this point to the next point. So there has to be, businesses need to look at it from the angle of the value chain. How can we work together? Not how can we fight each other?
That's a very key point to use. They're looking at it from the angle of the value chain. So looking at it concerning how much profit they can make. But apart from making profit, don't you think the consumers, or rather the clients' interest should also be put at the forefront?
Absolutely. Without the customers, without the consumers, then where is the market? They are the key players. They're the ones who make the key decision, because if buyers decide not to buy, what happens?
Yeah. Okay. So they are like, there's a popular saying that we always hear, the customer is always right. So
but not really that they're right. They're the reason why we're in business anyway.
exactly. So if they decide not to patronize, I mean, that's the end of the business.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, how can we ensure that, we're going into a future where, I mean, like I said, it's no longer the future, it's our present reality now. How do we maintain, like, it's not just about getting these technologies in play, but how do we ensure that we maintain these things in our different industries for those who have started using these different emerging technologies?
Well, that's a very great question. One of the things I will encourage is, one, you need to keep evolving. You need to keep growing, and you keep investing in manpower development and training, because you can never overemphasize this. And no amount of investment in personal development of key stakeholders will have to do with employees, because at the end of the day, as an entrepreneur, you cannot be everywhere at the same time. You would definitely need people. And so I'll put it in this philosophy that for organizations to be able to survive, they need to focus on their strength. They need to focus on their competitive advantage. Where do you have advantage? Invest in that area. Where you don't have an advantage, outsource. Collaborate with people who are better in that area than you are. And because at the end of the day, it's just like the bet of the online store, where you have there are places that you may not be able to get to, and there are people who can actually help you bring that. So that's where logistics needs to be factored. The logistics of moving from point A to point B has to be smooth. Then the manpower, people should be empowered and encouraged to do what they ought to do. And when people are empowered in their area of strength, they bring in a lot of energy, that which rubs down on the value chain. Then also, I would encourage businesses to embrace technology. Now, embrace technology, you need to embrace on technology that you understand, not the ones you don't understand. Because it's just like there are some tools that you may not need, but people might be telling you that these are the things that you need. So you need to focus on what you need that will help you to get to your destination in the shortest possible time. Remember, in business, you're looking at saving time, you're looking at saving cost, and you're looking at making profits.
Okay, those are very key things that you just mentioned there. Thank you for that. Now, does that mean that we're going to be seeing more partnerships between different business owners? For example, a lady that sells, maybe she's into food business. Does that mean there'll be partnerships with people who are into logistics services, looking at this, embracing more of this digital technology?
Yes, it will bring about more of collaboration. It's just like the person who is selling ewagoing and the person who is selling bread. They have to synergize. So it's more like digitalization is bringing us to that system of the trade by barter, where you bring in this value, I bring in this value, I bring in this service, we bring it together and we package it as a whole, as a bulk or as a bundle to say, okay, this is what we have to offer to the same client for maximum satisfaction.
Okay, very true. Very key points there to consider. Well said. Now, the fourth industrial revolution has ushered in an era of unprecedented velocity and progress marked by rapid use of AI. We've seen a lot of cloud computing. We've seen a lot of data analytics and the use of robotics, amongst other things now. So now looking at, like you mentioned, the health sector, and you've also mentioned, the financial industry with the rise of fintechs now. Those other sectors, can we see a situation where our leaders can make policies that other sectors can wholly embrace all these new technologies?
Well, we can see that another thing is one thing to enact policies and formulate policies. It's another thing for implementation. The major challenge we're having in this part of the world is implementation. We know what we ought to do, but we're not just doing them. And the ones who are doing them, they seem to be overwhelmed with the pressure of people saying, okay, our customers, because your customers are your stakeholders. And with that kind of pressure, every other person needs to embrace the same thing. I'll give another example. It's during the, for example, when you're running an advert promotion now, in as much as you know what you want to sell, you also need promoters who can go to the grassroots. So everybody in the value chain of whatever any business is representing needs to be carried along. So when government formulates a policy to say, okay, this is what we want to introduce, it is now left for who are the stakeholders that will ensure that to the very grassroots, the person the person down there knows what to do. For example, if the government is talking about going green, now that means that everybody, the customer, has to be advised that whenever you make use of our product, this is a proper way to dispose them. So that at the end of the day, everybody is contributing to the growth and not somebody trying to destroy what another person is building. So I had to use that example of drainage system and to be able to buttress is that the government may have enacted a policy, but it still has to get to the grassroots. Who is monitoring, who is doing an evaluation to say how far are these things being implemented to the very grassroots?
Okay, that's very key, because we need to make sure we are carrying everybody along, and especially in our country, we've seen that very wide gap when it comes to how laws are being enforced in the cities, and then back in the rural areas, there's always this, it's like there's a break in communication.
Absolutely.
Yes, so now just want to ask your advice now. How do you think our leaders should go forward to ensure that everyone is carried along, to ensure that Nigeria is well prepared for the future or our present reality? Well,
the best way to approach this is there has to be conversation. There has to be a dialogue. There has to be a town hall meeting. There has to be a stakeholder forum where the end users, the consumers, the producers, and the distributors have to meet. Because it's just for example, it's one thing to manufacture goods and keep in your warehouse, and you automatically think the goods are going to sell themselves. It has to move from production to distribution, because distribution is where the headache is. So until the people that are involved, the stakeholders, the key players in the value chain, until they have an agreement where they have a conversation, where a common understanding that these are the things that we need to do to ensure that we achieve the overall goal. Remember, everybody has got to win in the value chain. And if that is done, it may not be easy at first, but it's something that it has to be an ongoing conversation. Everybody needs to be carried along. And where there is no clarity, there has to be education, there has to be orientation, seminars, and programs to ensure that people actually understand the vision and the essence of what the policies or whatever the business arrangement or the business forum is all about. Because value is relative to different persons. So, but when you have ongoing conversations, people begin to understand the value, the reason why they need to do what they need to do, and the reason why people need to step up to ensure that everybody is carried along fully.
So as the Chief Growth Strategist for Litera Forge Ltd, now what role does leadership play in driving digital transformation in Nigerian businesses?
Well, that's a great question. Leadership plays a key role because without leadership, there's no direction. And so as a leader in the business industry, one of the things that I would always encourage business owners is the fact that you must understand that people have got problems. That's your target audience. They've got problem. They need solution, and they have the money. But they are looking for someone who they can trust. So that's where leadership is about trust, it's about direction, it's about providing the pathway. If a leader is blind, then there's going to be a problem with the followers. They're going to have a lot of traffic jam. But when a leader can see far, it also helps the people who are coming after to be able to see further. Now, so in business, where leadership is very, very important is with proper vision, there's going to be a lot of alignment. Vision helps the future. Without vision, most businesses will still be in the past. Now, it had to take the vision of some key stakeholders in the business to introduce smaller buses instead of the bigger buses that we used to have back in the 90s. Now, it has taken leadership for us to have transport companies going into logistics. It has taken leadership for businesses to introduce online payments. You pay online, you don't need to carry cash. It has taken leadership for us to enjoy the cashless policy that the government has introduced, and we're trying to see how to. Then the introduction of the fintechs has been as a result of leadership in business. So leadership is very, very crucial. Without leadership, we're heading nowhere.
Okay, I'm quite sure you emphasize this a lot when talking to a lot of business people.
Absolutely.
In terms of how to grow their businesses.
Absolutely.
Now, now looking at our country, I still want us to focus more on Nigeria. Now, what infrastructure upgrades are necessary for a successful digital transformation?
Well, we need an enabling environment where the issue of power needs to be resolved. And insecurity has to be addressed, because even if there is power and people don't feel safe where they are, the ease of doing business becomes more challenging. Then the government needs to do, they're trying, but they still need to do a lot more when it comes to road networks, where people are able to move from different parts easily. That will help in terms of distribution from the rural area to the urban cities, and it will create a lot of development. But when you have goods that have been produced and there is no way to transport them, it becomes a huge challenge. So those are the things I think that the government need to look into, to provide an enabling environment both for foreigners who are coming in to invest and for indigenous businesses that are also trying to contribute to the GDP of the country as well.
Those are very key things that need to be resolved. Well said. Now, what skills are required for employees to thrive in a digitally transformed business?
Well, communication has to improve. Interestingly, in the business sector, a lot of people talk, but they don't communicate. And because every customer has got an expectation, and how these expectations are managed could actually form the customer's experience, and in terms of feedback and in terms of consumer behavior, in terms of, okay, preference, should I go ahead and do business with company A or B? And remember, in business, people are actually interested in the outcome, not the product and services. Is the outcome that brings about satisfaction, is the outcome that brings about transformation. And it's about is the outcome that also encourages them to refer other people to do business with any in the marketplace. So everybody is looking for value.
Yeah, that's very true. What you just said, everyone is looking for value. Now, given the fast pace of change in this era, a lot of organizations risk deploying obsolete technology if they take too long to implement, and if it stays too long without being implemented, it might become not very useful. You might see, oh, there's an upgrade, you can't be using this software at this point in time. And on the flip side, a hasty deployment of certain technologies might result in inadequate planning and might make expose the systems to some cyber threats. Now, when is the right time to implement these new technologies that can work alongside the market?
Okay, when it comes to that, one of the things I would encourage is the fact that while you're trying to upgrade from what you have to the new one, to something new and more sophisticated, there should be room for a stopgap where you keep using what you're using, but you transition to something newer gradually, so that at the end of the day, there is no downtime.
Okay, when you say a stopgap, what do you mean by
a
that?
stopgap is, okay, you have something that you can be running with while you're upgrading. You don't just suddenly upgrade from what you have to where you're going without something to stand out in case there is a failure in terms of trying to migrate. What happens? Because like using the example of what happened when some banks went into the upgrade of their system, some businesses suffered. And that is, but at the back of their mind, that was not the plan. But these things happen. So when you're trying to migrate or you're trying to upgrade, you should also put the interest of your customers. No customer wants to be in discomfort. And so those are the things that organizations should look at, businesses should look at. When you're trying to change, what will be the effect of this change on your customers? Because when you don't consider that, then that means that you just want them to, you don't believe in them, they don't matter. So or you just feel that you can always get away with it, and that should not be the thing. So the businesses should ensure that their customers are carried along. Sometimes some customers can even give businesses a better option what to do to scale up.
And how would you recommend they go about doing this?
Well, that is where relationship management comes in. When in business, when you know that your customers care about you and your customers know that you care about them, they could offer suggestion that, okay, you could try this or you could try this other option. And they will be patient enough because you've carried them along through ongoing conversation. You have been able to manage a relationship well. But in a case where you don't have a relationship with them other than it's just transaction, you pay me my money and off you go. Then when you're trying to migrate into something new, you leave them in the dark and they have no choice than to look for the next vendor who can provide the services that you are trying to provide.
Those are very key points you raised there. Now, I'm quite sure you would, I don't know, what are your thoughts on this innovation in business? Now, but before we talk about innovation now, I'm sure you've noticed that not just in the hospitals alone, there are some financial organizations that still use papers for customer-facing activities. And in this digital era, we know that there are some issues using papers all the time. Everybody recommends having all that information online. Now, how can companies rely on, how can they upgrade from the use of papers? They shouldn't just be relying on it all the time, to a more digitally savvy software that they can easily store all their data. And then what role does innovation come into play in all of this?
Well, very great question. Innovation brings about progress, brings about time management. Now, in the case of using the manual system, it's just like business, you're still using the physical invoice writing. Now, what happens if it's raining and there's a flood, a case of flood? So it's best to upgrade to something digital. At least there are some devices that with the smartphone you can actually generate receipts for your customers, just like the way the POS machines. So it's best to digitalize, because the cost, for example, the cost of producing booklets or receipts in January is different from the cost of producing now. So how long are you going to continue to incur such costs when you could actually have a digital solution? You do e-invoicing, and you are not bothered about how many papers you are consuming. Now you have the email address. So when you move from writing invoices manually to writing printing to a digital, creating digital invoice, one, you make it easy and seamless. Then it's easy for you to track at the end of the week, at the end of the month, to check your inflow and your outflow, to say, okay, these so and so invoices have been generated, and you know where there are shortfalls. But sometimes, what if the person who is going to issue out the invoice is not around? And you're also trying to have data integrity in such a way that you are trying to rule out forgery, so that someone else wouldn't forge an invoice. So it's best for businesses to look into digital invoicing, to say, okay, instead of the manual thing and littering your whole business premises with documents that you may not need after a while.
Okay. So we should just so you are, in your own words, if I'm allowed to say, everybody should do away with the use of papers or any kind of paper system and let everything just be online, if I'm right.
Yes, we should graduate to that, because except we are trying to create another system where all the used invoices, used papers that we have littered in some offices, if they have been digitalized, then they can actually be converted to from waste to something else. It can be actually recycled to produce other things that will help the ecosystem. But if we store some of these papers for too long and there are cases of fire incidences, that becomes a tool for the spread of fire.
Yeah, that's very true. Now, we know that all these ideas are quite good. The way you have put them together, they're actually quite good. And when put into practice, yes, it saves cost. It's actually much smarter. Now, how can organizations maintain a balance between novelty and practicality to ensure that every innovation adds value to the end user?
Well, one thing we must understand is we look at the difference between efficiency and perfection. There is no system that is perfect, but a system that is progressive will actually outlast a system that is trying to perfect strategies. So, in a nutshell, what that means is, in as much as we're trying to embrace innovation, we must also, organizations must also train their manpower to meet up with that trend, with the pace at which they're trying to innovate, to ensure that there is no gap. The moment there is it's not that there's not going to be gap, it's just to reduce the gap to the barest minimum. Am I answering the question?
Yes, keep going, please.
Okay. So when there is a gap, when they're trying to remember that we're trying to resolve the issue of reducing the gap. We're not trying to say that we can eliminate the gap. The system is progressive. Now, let me give a vivid example. Before now, when we go to school, when you graduate, you have to spend a number of years before you can get your certificate. First, they might issue you the statement of results. But now, with technology, schools are gradually upgrading where the moment you graduate, yes, you get your statement of results, and in a very short while, your original certificate is ready, and of which you can actually view them through the portal. Unlike the traditional method where you need to be submitting files from one office to another office, for you to be cleared. Things can be done online. So what that means is that while we're encouraging innovation, and we must also remember that human beings will find at different level, will also need some time to be able to adjust to fit into what needs to be done.
Okay, well said. Before we round up the program now, in a few words, can you just tell us how we know our world is ever changing and the business sector is a very competitive industry now? So in a few words, how can Nigeria stay at the same level with other countries of the world so that we can always showcase our tech savvy industry?
Well, it's not a case of Nigeria staying at the same pace.
Or moving ahead.
We can move ahead. And the first thing we need to do is we need to believe in ourselves. The developed countries that we are looking up to believe in themselves, believe in their products. So just like that brand, think Nigeria, brand Nigeria, and focus on Nigeria. We have a lot to offer if we only look inward rather than looking outward. So I'll tell any business out there, keep looking inward and keep improving, keep growing, keep adapting, and you'll become the focus.
Well said. Thank you so much, Wilson Samson, for sharing your insights into this discussion, how to digitally transform Nigerian businesses and the benefits it will bring to these businesses. It was really great having you on the program Markets Insights. We look forward again to having you in our studios to share more insights into our businesses. Thank you so much, Wilson Samson.
Pleasure is mine. Thanks for having me.
Okay, now let's look at the money markets this morning, how the selling rates of dollars, pound sterling, and the euros. We're looking at the Central Bank of Nigeria rates and the parallel markets rates. So for today, Thursday, 31st October, the selling rate for the dollar at the CBN rate is 1,683 naira to $1. At the parallel market, it is 1,750 naira to $1. For the pound sterling, at the CBN rate is 2,217 naira to £1 sterling. At the parallel market, it is 2,270 naira to £1 sterling. For the euro, it is 1,860 naira to €1. That's the CBN rate. And at the parallel market rate, it is 1,860 naira to €1. So the parallel market figure and the CBN rates are also the same thing. That's just for the euro. But for the pound sterling and the dollars, the parallel market figures are higher than the CBN figures. Okay, so those are our money market figures this morning. Many thanks for watching the program Market Insights as we discuss with our guest Wilson Samson, the Chief Growth Strategist, Litera Forge Ltd, and he shared a lot of insights into how businesses can really benefit from being digitally transformed and tapping into these emerging technologies that are evolving every day. And like you rightfully said, when we think Nigeria and grow Nigeria, we're definitely going to be faster or way ahead than other countries of the world. Many thanks for watching the program Market Insights. Do stay tuned to the news updates on Sook News Television. I am your host, Lovina Emah.